Okay, hello everybody. This is Todd from the Table Ready podcast. And today, what we're going to be doing is going over some of the Space Marine chapters and how they choose to go to battle. This has been actually inspired by Space Marines 2, and I know that a lot of people out there, of course, are playing Space Marine 2. And I just wanted to go over some of the chapters. We're just going to do the loyalist side at this point and see what we can come up with. Basically, some of the ways that they go to war, some of the successor chapters. Since they all kind of like do the same, they fall under the same guidelines of their first founding. So, of course, with Space Marine specifically, what I did want to do was start with the Ultramarines, because they're the poster child of the 41st millennium at this time. And the Ultramarines are, of course, are the Codex compliant, the most Codex compliant, considering Guilliman, who is their Primarch, is the one that wrote the Codex Asteris, the book that all the Space Marines chapters follow. So to start off with, so they go to war of course in every possible situation. They use the right troops on the right battlefield at the right time, and the reason that they do that is to keep everything in their main way of working. So if you need assault marines to jump over a wall, they have assault marines to jump over a wall. If they need somebody that does siege tactics, they put the aggressors, or the heavy infantry, like the heavy intercessors, or excuse me, or the the devastators, or whatever they need to get onto the battlefield and get into the right position and apply them where they need to be applied. So they are probably the most well-rounded of all the Space Marine chapters, and they are going to be the ones that kind of keep everything flowing and in the right order, and keep everything going to solve any situations. They're the typical Swiss Army knife of the 41st millennia, and of course of the Adeptus Asteris. The next one down the line that I want to do is the Blood Angels, and I think the Blood Angels, of course, are probably one of your most aggressive, fast assault troops. What they're going to do is a lot of assault battle line troops, your assault intercessors with jump packs, your Vanguard vets. Of course, they apply their own Sanguinary Guard, which is their veterans. So when you're going to be playing them, you're going to be playing them as very fast and aggressive troops whenever you're going to be playing them. So if you want to move around the board super fast with all your infantry and get to the objective and get stuck in, they're probably one of the best ones. They will dedicate themselves almost to a fault to just dive in and get everything going. While we're on that kind of theme, I want to jump straight to the Space Wolves. Space Wolves are a little different. What they do, they follow a lot of different paths. They are not what they consider Codex compliant. So instead of 10 companies to make one chapter, they actually have 12 great companies. They do apply Space Wolf Scouts and Space Wolves, Gray Hunters. They actually move up in rank as they age as well, to a point. Obviously, there are some exceptions to the rule, and I think that if somebody that wants to play Space Wolves is usually trying to play them because of their look and feel more than what they do differently on the battlefield. Myself, when I got into playing Warhammer 40k, my cousin was starting a Space Wolves army. That's about the only reason why I didn't play Space Wolves. I do love the theme. I'm a big wolf fan, if anybody knows. As you can see here, well, if you're watching, I actually have trim on the top of the border on the top of my walls here are wolves. And so I'm a big fan of wolves. Like I said, if my cousin didn't pick those when he started playing, it's probably where I would have started and ended up. So, but they do apply different tactics. They are also another one that likes to get stuck in where they need to get stuck in. They're a little bit different, where they will send their Gray Hunters or their Intercessors straight into the battle line to kind of hold up the enemy. Their sagas are the heroes, and that of course does keep them invested in the combat, because they are the Vikings, so they do want to go back to their lodges and tout their victories over their foes. One thing that I did want to say, they are specifically opposed to the Thousand Suns. Anybody that's played Space Marine 2, they are the Space Marines, the Chaos Space Marines that are prominent in the campaign with the Zangors and the Rubric Marines. Those are the Thousand Suns. The Space Wolves have a lot of enmity with them specifically, only because their Primarch, Leman Russ, went into the warp to chase Magnus. And of course, if you're playing the tabletop at all, you do realize that Magnus has been out and about, and there's still no sign from Leman Russ. So we do have a couple homebrew theories about what's going on with Leman Russ, and I do feel that one of my friends and players believes that Leman Russ is sitting in the warp with Cato Sicarius playing chess. And every time Cato's about to win, Leman Russ flips the board and they have to start all over. It's a heck of a story to believe if you're going to listen to it. But if you're not, if you believe in that, then I think it's a good idea. Of course, if you do play Space Marines on the tabletop, you will know that Cato Sicarius is an Ultramarine. He went into the warp. I don't even remember why, but he went into the warp chasing somebody and hasn't come back yet either. So there's our theory. He's in the warp playing chess with Leman Russ. I don't know. I kind of feel that they're probably playing a more aggressive game, but Cato's a little more of the smart and Leman Russ is a little more impetuous. It could be done. I could see it. So that being said, that's the two of the most aggressive ones. The next one, of course, is White Scars, and I'm just kind of rounding to them because they're definitely into the Assault Marines. They want to move in, get stuck. They also do apply a lot of bikes and speed, and if you want to put them to a real world army, they would be the Mongols, the Genghis Khan type of Mongol horseback. But of course, this is the 41st millennium, so they get to ride bikes and and stuff like that. So while the Space Wolves will ride wolves, the White Scars definitely jump on their motorcycles or their Outrider bikes, as the case may be now, and jump around the battlefield on their bikes and on their speeders, and just kind of wreak havoc that way. They bring, the Emperor's vengeance by sword through the bikes, getting in close real fast. White Scars will, they of course are Codex compliant, so they do have Devastator squads and assault squads and so on and so forth. And they keep moving forward. That is their typical thing. They're going to stay on their bikes and keep riding faster and forward and running down the enemy on their bikes. Their Primarch, of course, is Jagged Khan. Jagged Khan is a possibility. He could come back. He went into the Webway. I'm not really. I don't remember who he was hunting down, but he was hunting down somebody in the Webway. And he hasn't come back yet either. I think he's a good possibility of somebody that could come back. If the story brought it right. My biggest concern is, at this point, could you put a Primarch on a bike and have them be effective? Or how big would that bike be as a model? I think that would be pretty interesting to see, and probably a lot of fun to model. I mean, could you imagine somebody the size is like Guilliman and Lion on a motorcycle? I mean, that would be pretty cool. So, that's the White Scars. And of course, after that, you're going to get away from some of this fast attack, but the next one are the Salamanders that I want to hit up. The Salamanders are, of course, the fire and flame of the Astartes. They want to get right up close with their enemies. Their favored weapons would be flamers and flamethrowers, and of course meltaguns and anything that brings the heat. They're a lot of fun to play. They are aggressors. Anything that can really get up close and personal with their enemy and bring close support. Like I said, like the fire and flame and stuff like that. So they are going to get in and rout the enemy as close as possible. Their Primarch, or their chapter master, Vulcan Hastan, he's still a model that you can play with. He's supposed to be what do they call that? Impetual or perpetual. So you can't kill him. But I'm pretty sure the lore changed. It used to be just a suit of armor, and whoever kind of climbed in it was considered the next Vulcan Hastan. And basically, like, it's just a title, not the name of a specific character. So, Salamanders are, of course, that dark green or the lighter green armor. They do kind of, like I said, they kind of get close in combat. Not necessarily like chainsword and armor, but anything that can bring the flame and fire. So after that, we do have, let's do it to the Iron Hands. The Iron Hands are your siege or anti-siege. They're kind of like, I guess they would be the siege assault. So they're going to bring all the mechanical, all the vehicles, all the dreadnoughts. They do like to replace their skin and their bodies with mechanical replacements, whether it be bionics or arm replacement. They're probably the closest thing the Astartes have to the Adeptus Mechanicus. And, so their whole philosophy is the flesh is weak. Same thing as the Admech. They kind of replace their... not one that I'm really on board with. I mean, I think if you're a superhuman with genetic alterations and 2 hearts and all that, why would you replace your super powered arm with a robotic arm? But I guess that's something that could be interesting. Not really my claim to fame. Not the ones that I would really want to jump on. So again, like those are the siege. The Iron Hands are your siege warriors. So they would bring your multi-meltas, your heavy plasma incinerators, of course, all your Redemptor dreadnoughts and stuff like that. You would kind of lean onto your more mechanical, more tech marines, probably less chaplains, and so on and so forth. Okay, so right, we handle the Ultramarines, Blood Angel, Space Wolves, White Scars, Salamanders, Iron Hands. The next ones that I really would like to get into would be the Raven Guard. And Raven Guard are essentially your stealth troops. They rely heavily on stealth. That, of course, would include most of your Phobos armors, your scouts, your infiltrators, your incursors, anything like that would kind of be more forward and keep moving or keep sneaking up on the enemy. Again, they are black and white armored. Their Primarch has passed. Probably should have looked that up, but I don't remember what exactly happened to him. But I know he is no longer in the 41st millennia, so there's not really a chance beyond some kind of resurrection to bring him back into the storyline. So let's see. After the Raven Guard, and of course, like I said, they're the big stealth ones. The ones that would be opposite to the Iron Hands would be the Imperial Fists. Imperial Fists are your stalwart guard. They were originally the guardians of Terra before and the Emperor himself. Of course, before the Custodes came around. Their mainstay, their base of operation is within Terra's solar system, the Sol system. They are the defenders of humanity. They are the defenders of Terra. They are the defenders of everywhere that they end up being. They are the troops that they're going to build the bases and hide behind the walls. Not necessarily hide behind the walls, but, they're going to protect your castles. They're going to protect your strongholds. They're going to keep everything straight and keep it in the right, hold your ground over whatever comes their way. They're going to build the bases, and they're essentially like the core of engineers of the Adeptus Astartes. Rogal Dorn is their Primarch, and he was... all that is left of him is a fist with Dorn's hammer, which I believe is a bolt gun, if I remember correctly. And of course, it is a rare artifact within the Imperial Fists on their homeworld. They do keep all their stuff motivated. That does keep them motivated. The chaplains keep everybody in line. That is a holy relic to them, is Dorn's hand with Dorn's hammer. So yeah, so they're the defenders. The last one that I have, of course, is the one that's near and dear to my heart, is the Dark Angels. And of course, I could probably go over a very long time of Dark Angels lore. Oh, actually, before I get to the Dark Angels, I did want to mention the Black Templars. The Black Templars are a successor chapter to the Imperial Fists. So they're essentially just a Crusader army. They are not Codex compliant because they do not have a homeworld. They don't have a region where they draw troops from. They kind of draw troops from wherever they're at. They are fleet based. They do bring their trainees and just kind of stick them in the squad like Jedi Padawans with bolt guns. So so that is something that they do that's different than everybody else. It does keep them with troops because they can kind of pick them up wherever they go. So they're not just kind of shooting back to a home world and then picking new recruits up and then heading back out to wherever they're starting trouble or solving trouble. They are a little more aggressive as far as their battle tactics. They kind of get in there and fight bolter and chainsword and really keep everything close. They do have a full allotment of all the vehicles and weapons and armaments. And of course, they're black and white in color as well, as opposed to the Imperial Fist's bright yellow color armor. So I did want to jump back and get to them before I got into the Dark Angels. And I like I said, I'm kind of saving the Dark Angels for last because they're the chapter that I play. They are the dark green armored in most cases. They are mostly codex compliant. Ooh, my words are killing me today. Not a good day to be a podcaster. They are mostly codex compliant. They of course have a little bit of history. When the Horus Heresy was going on, which is what created the Dark Angel, the schism between the Chaos forces and the Imperial forces, they got about partway through and part of the Legion fell to Chaos, or not necessarily. So there's a lot of stories on that, and you can kind of form your own opinions. There's tons of books to read. I mentioned a couple of them right off the bat. If you want to jump right into the Horus Heresy, you can read Fallen Angels, and there was a follow-up one to that, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. But those are the two. There are two books right there to read, and then of course the new one, the Lion, the Sons of the Forest. That's a good one to read too. That's about how the lion came back. But sorry, I got a little sidetracked there. What I wanted to actually talk about was part of their Legion betrayed them. And the question is, of course, some of them were sent back to Caliban, which was their home planet, and when the lion came back, the forces that were on Caliban started bombarding the fleet when it came back. So essentially, Luther, who was the second in command to the Lion, or Lionel Johnson, he got all kinds of Chaos tomes and got overly involved in the Chaos tomes. So he really did fall to chaos. Some of the leadership may have, or may just have been a little beguiled. But when the bombardment started happening, there was a huge warp storm that fell around Caliban, possibly caused by the Chaos Forces trying to keep the Dark Angels out of the events at Terra, or possibly from some other influence, or just the possibility that so much raw warp energy was focused around the planet at that time. But anyway, what happened is when the planet actually started to break apart from the warp storm, and a lot of the combatants, whether they were fallen or not fallen or misguided or whatever you want to call it, a lot of them got sucked up into the warp, and with that they went into the warp and kind of came back out of the warp whenever the warp felt it was okay. Some of them came out immediately, some of them came out years later, some of them came out millennia later. And of course, when that happened, the Dark Angels, as they were at that time, decided that they needed to hunt down all the fallen to basically hide their fallen brothers from their betrayal to the Emperor, hide that from the Imperium at large, and they started hunting down all these Dark Angels that fell, which they had then dubbed Fallen. So they did start hunting them right away, and when they did, they kind of redistributed all of their forces to different approaches. So they do have the Raven Wing, which, of course, the Horus Heresy happened in, 30,000, 31,000, and of course, the current timeline is 41,000 years. And so right after the end of the Horus Heresy, they kind of put the Raven Guard the Raven Wing into service, hunting down these fallen. Now, as soon as they do find the fallen, they strike with the Deathwing, and that's how they try to kill or capture the fallen members of the Dark Angels. Now, it has come out as of recently, some of the fallen were just not actually fallen, just the command structure fell. They saw the Dark Angels that were with Lionel Johnson to be the traitors, as it were. And so what happened was there's a lot of them that went into hiding, some of them that became warlords, some of them that became all other things, some of them that just hid. And I'm not really sure how an 8-foot super soldier hides in a regular society, but that's what they were doing. So, but anyway, they still run all the Dark Angels, or all the Unforgiven, are still set up into 10 companies per chapter. Each successor chapter is set up the same way. And what they do is, and instead of having, the first company is still veterans, second company for all of the Unforgiven are Raven Wing. So they are mostly Codex compliant, but not fully. But they, of course, are set up very different. The Raven Wing works almost separately and independently on its own, and those are your bikes and your speeders. The Deathwing, of course, work almost independent on their own a lot of the times, just hunting down the Fallen. And then, of course, their regular mainline troops are probably the most like the Ultramarines of any other Imperial Asteres chapter, because they kind of put whatever they need into place wherever they need to be in place. Their big bonus, their big claim to fame, if you would, is the fact that they are very stubborn. They're very stuck in, especially when they're hunting the Fallen. And of course, their normal troops don't always understand that they are hunting the Fallen. So it is interesting to keep that awareness going on. They're basically their intercessors or their scouts or whatever think the Dark Angels are exactly like every other chapter, or any other chapter of Space Marines. So that's it. Those are all the founding chapters. There's a ton of different successor chapters. The Ultramarines, of course, they were the biggest chapter at the time. So when they got, or the Legion at the time of the Horus Heresy. So when the Codex Asteres was written, they're the ones that got split into the most separate successor chapters. So of course they have the most successor chapters. The one that I did want to mention as a sidebar is the Blood Ravens, and they're kind of a secretive chapter in a sense. They don't know who their founding Legion is, but of course there's a lot of rumors that they are based on the Thousand Sons as their initial founding, which would be interesting because they are an Imperial chapter that comes from a caste Legion, but of course they would probably be separated before the rubric and before the Thousand Sons turned to chaos. But the biggest hint on that, of course, is their chapter is the only chapter that has a chapter master that is always, or most always, a librarian. Which, of course, the only one other than them, the only one that was really led by a sorcerer or librarian would be the Thousand Sons. So, on that note, that's going to be it for me for today. I wanted to just kind of go over some of those chapters, and we're probably going to dig into some more Space Marine lore and details as we move forward. And I do want to kind of jump into the Crusade rules in probably one of the next episodes, because at this point I have the Space Marine Codex and I have the Dark Angels Codex. I could probably get my hands on the Blood Angels, since that should be out well enough in time for me to do a follow-up on them too for Crusades. But so this is going to be coming out on Tuesday, November 5th. And I just wanted to kind of put that out there. If anybody's listening to this on Tuesday from the US, that is election day, please get out there and vote. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for or who I would vote for or anything like that. But the elections, of course, is important, and you kind of got to get out there and vote. If you're registered, make a plan, go vote. and let's try to do the right thing and keep everything moving in the right direction. So on that note, I want to thank everybody for coming. Just a follow up. Every other week, you can find me here on Twitch and TikTok on Sunday night. This comes out in podcast form and YouTube on Tuesday. And anybody else that wants to follow, I'm still working on my notes for Bounty Hunting Across the Galaxy with Todd and Ken. That should be coming up within a week or two. Hopefully I can get that scheduled up and, get that out. And then I'm also on Lake Clan Legends with my sons playing Dungeons and Dragons on YouTube. So if you want to get to me, find out where I am, or you want to hear anything else from me, that's where to find me. All right. And of course, we're also on Facebook and Instagram and of course TikTok. And that's about it. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.